Howdy! Hope you guys are doing well and keeping safe wherever you are in the world.
If you can see, we have our hand sanitizer.
Yep.
At the back, here, over here. You see it?
Small bottles over here.
We have 2 hand sanitizers.
Yeah. It's very important, very useful to make sure keep your hands clean always.
Yeah. Any delivery that comes through the house, it needs to be filtered in that area.
Yeah.
And wiped down and sanitized before we bring it into the house.
Xandria came out with a system. I think it's an excellent system, and we abide by it very religiously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Better to be safe, people.
Yeah, most definitely.
So we're talking about communicating our needs.
Yeah, I know it's an extension of what you talked about yesterday.
Yes.
Now with me in the picture about communicating what you need in relationships, and not necessarily just the romantic relationships, your partner relationships, but also I think it applies to your siblings, your parents, or family members that you are in close contact with or grown up with. And I think it's something that we spoke about this earlier today, and it's something that I think a lot of our unhappiness in our relationships come up from. Like, the more we talked about it, the more we realized that most of the contentions or the difficulties we have with the people in our lives are due to this inability to express our feelings and needs and all the things that that cause the trouble.
Yeah, so we were just talking about how, like, it's not just in romantic relationships that a lot of the times we have trouble communicating our needs.
Yeah.
But also, you know, sometimes with like family, and you're not happy with like your parents, you're not happy with your sibling, and they're doing something that you feel emotionally very hurt by.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you feel hurt, it's a sign that there is something that you need, right? That that is not being given, or that it's not apparent, right? In that transaction, or in that in the action. And
it might not be very clear, you know, to the other party involved, and that usually is a problem.
I feel like we were just talking about how, like, a lot of parents want the best for their children, like the adult children. You know how, like, now that we're adults, right? We have a relationship with our parents as well, and this relationship actually is very shaped by our habits. So when you're young, nobody teaches you really to communicate your needs with your parents, right? And so when you're older, there can be a lot of hurt on both ends. It's like you may say something or do something that your parents feel hurt by, and your parents may say or do something that you feel hurt by. Now, in situations like these, often there are only 2 things that happen. We either react by like an outburst, like we get really angry and we stop talking to them, or we react by suppressing how we feel because we don't know how to say these things, and then the frustration and resentment just builds up within us.
And it might turn out into some sort of passive-aggressive type behavior as well. There are small rebellions against your parent or your
your siblings.
Yeah, or your sibling.
Or you vent on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I think the first step in a lot of this is even before opening up ourselves to communicating these needs, right? Is to understand our own needs.
Yes.
Like, very often, right, we get annoyed at, say, our parents or our partner because of something. And sometimes you feel like it's just some obvious thing. Like, it's so obvious that they should know these things, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they don't know, and you sometimes don't know the core of why you're feeling a certain way.
Yes.
Right? Maybe they talk to you about money, for example, and you get a little bit irritated. You know what? I can handle my own money, blah, blah, blah. You don't ask yourself, why are you so sort of affected by that conversation?
This is a good example. The whole, like, you know, if your parents or your spouse remind you like a 10 times, 20 times, 100 times about something like money, for example, why is it a trigger? Like, if they remind you 10, 20, 100 times, they're just reminding you, right? And I was writing in one of my recent daily posts that, you know, when someone reminds you about something, if you have no triggers whatsoever, then you can just, if they're telling you 10 times, you can just say 10 times, thank you for the reminder. If they say 100 times, you can say 100 times, thank you for the reminder. But we get very triggered because maybe we feel like you must think that I'm incapable. And that's why you keep reminding me so many times to do that thing. right? Like, give me some credit. I already know this. Why are you telling me something I already know? So there's one kind of trigger.
You know, it's funny because if your phone reminds you of something, right, and you sort of like say, okay, remind me again tomorrow, you don't go like, oh, but you told me before already, you know, it's not like I don't know how to do this thing, you know.
But you set your own reminder. That's different.
Yeah,
you know,
correct.
it's like there is permission. You know, permission.
Yeah,
you know, you're inviting your phone to remind you, but you didn't invite your partner to remind you. You didn't invite your parent to remind you.
Exactly. And also there are stories involved, right? Like,
Yes.
oh, you know, they always think I'm this incapable. My partner always thinks I don't know how to handle the money, and when she tells me, you know, you got to be careful with this, I always think she thinks I don't know how to handle things.
Right.
You know?
So that's the trigger, right?
Yeah, that's the trigger.
So what's the cause of that trigger? On the surface level, right? Like you were saying, it seems very normal. It's like, it's because you keep nagging me. Okay, that's like the surface reason for the trigger.
And that might be the reason you think why you're irritated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why like understanding yourself, like you were saying, is so important. Because when you go deeper, you're like, hang on, is it because one of my primary needs is I need to feel supported by the people I love. I need to feel supported by my husband and my wife. I need to feel supported by my parents. And so when they remind me 10, 20 times about the same thing, I feel like they are maybe judging me and I feel very unsupported. Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's your story, right? So you need to go deeper and say that, have I always felt that maybe my parents or my partner doesn't think I am capable at maybe, you know, at managing my own money, for example, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe thinks I'm just not a capable person overall and I'm not very smart, for example.
Yeah, so maybe there's a fear of coming across as stupid, you know, like maybe we ourselves already feel very insecure about our capabilities, and then when our loved ones, you know, keep reminding us about something, we kind of feel like it indicates that we're not smart enough, and that triggers us. Because if you really know that you're very smart and very capable, then it wouldn't be a trigger, right? You'll just be like, oh, thank you for the reminder. So the question is again, like, why am I so triggered? And then we move on once we find out, right? Then the communication changes. So this is where we can communicate our needs. So instead of
you're
saying,
not yelling or you're not sort of being irritated, right?
So in the communication, it will be like, instead of saying that, why do you keep reminding me? You know, like you already told me 10 times, blah, 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 you know. Okay, so it could go that way. Or it could go, you know, I've been thinking a lot about why I feel like triggered whenever you say this. And I think it's because I need to feel supported. I have a need to feel very supported in this relationship because that's what I need to feel loved, right?
And then I might go, but then I do know that you have these difficulties or something, and I want to sort of help you through them, right?
Or you might go, I am supporting you.
And that's the thing. That's the interesting thing. Like it can be this conversation that is sort of building up the curiosity of how do we find a solution to this, right? Or how do we find a better place to be at, right?
And the thing is, like, even when I am like expressing my needs to my partner might say, but I am supporting you. What do you mean you don't feel supported, right? And they can feel very defensive. So that is their trigger, because they are suddenly getting very defensive, even though you are just innocently communicating your needs, right? And so
so there's a lot of subtlety to this, and there's a lot of, you need to practice this sort of patience and this sort of like understanding that your emotions are going to be triggered because it is something that is very sensitive for you.
Be prepared.
So you have to be prepared. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to talk to you about this right now, and your emotions are sort of semi-running high already. And then if they don't react in the way that you
hope for.
you hope that they react, then it's going to be this.
Actually, we just want, you know, whenever we communicate our needs, we just want the person to go like, oh, thank you for telling me, you know, I never would have known otherwise. I do love you. I do care for you. But often that's not the response that we get.
Almost always is not the response that you get.
It'll be like, huh? What do you mean? They start to get defensive. And it's like, you know, they feel attacked, but it's not our objective, you know?
And, you know, obviously, this need thing, right, is more of an opening up to your partner. You know, it's not asking them to do something. It's saying that, you know, I have this difficulty, and this is a thing that causes me pain, and I would like to let you know that this causes me pain, you know, and to see where we can go from there. It's not saying that, oh, you know, that thing you say causes me pain, so never do that again. Full stop. Okay, bye bye. You know, it's not telling them to change and like that's it. You know, it's an opening up. So you open up to your partner and say, this thing, you know, I've always had a problem with people thinking I'm stupid, for example. And when you say that, it really makes me feel like you think I'm stupid, and I feel very just unhappy when that happens.
So your objective is just to share that with me?
Yeah, to share that with you.
Okay,
and I found that you've done that with me as well.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes Xandria has told me the thing that, oh, when you do this, you know, it makes me feel this because of this, and she's thought about it through, about why. You know, we were talking earlier about how to look at yourself, right? And to say, think about the reasons. And Xandria goes through that process. And then after that, she talks to me and tells me, and she doesn't tell me like, okay, so stop doing that, right? like that, because I care for her enough to know that I don't want to do that, and maybe it just didn't occur to me that's the case, and I don't take it personally as well. The main problem comes when, you know, you and your partner, the pain points are perfectly aligned. So when she says, oh, this thing causes me pain, and then the partner might react in pain because they might feel like they're an incompetent partner, for example, and they don't like to feel that.
So the triggers, right? What you're really saying that the pain points are perfectly aligned in the sense that sometimes we argue with our partner or even with our parents because we want to feel supported, right? That's our need, right? And then when we convey that, they feel attacked or they feel unappreciated, and maybe that is their need. Maybe their need is to feel
I need
appreciated.
to feel capable. I need to feel like I'm good at what I do. You know?
So what we say, our need, actually triggers them because it touches on their needs and their fears. So that it perfectly aligns, right? So
like this mega storm, because like then I'll say something that makes you hurt from that point of view, and you'll say something that makes me hurt, and this discussion is not a productive discussion anymore.
And this is why people take things personally.
And that's why partners can't talk to each other as well sometimes. You know? So it's this opening up, and when you open up and sort of like come from a language of saying that I want to tell you how I feel, and not tell you how I feel because of you, but tell you how I feel when certain actions happen, right? It's from you, might be from somebody else, but it's just an informing. That's all. And you lay it on the table, because your partner will look at it and say, "Oh, this is new information for me," right?
Now, I think the third thing, moving on from that, is to be mentally prepared to accept any kind of response that you're going to get.
Yeah.
So the first thing is understand yourself. The second point is to have the objective that you're just sharing your needs. Just sharing, okay? You're not telling. You're not saying, okay, I told you already, bye-bye, you know, change. The objective is not try to change the person. It's just to share your needs. Inform, share. Yes. Exactly. And the third thing is to be mentally prepared of their response or their reaction. Be prepared for all eventualities. Like they might be defensive, or like before we were saying that they might feel triggered and they might react badly, or they might not understand, or they might say things that hit you again in your pain points. You know?
And that's why when you do these things, right, you have to be in a very sort of calm and sort of peaceful state. Because if you're in an agitated state, right, and you're always like you know, like I'm gonna tell them, or it's so unfair, or whatever it is, right? It's going to be a high chance that it's going to turn out like not a happy situation for both of you. So you know, when it comes to this telling and saying that, you know what, I'm just going to leave this here, and if they react in a way, you just don't have to engage so much deeply. Like no, but this, because you already kind of say, I left it here. I put it on the table for you to kind of, that's it.
Okay, so you're saying in part 3, where to accept any kind of response, which is like, even we feel tempted to interrupt or to explain more and more to have a rebuttal, like just to decide to not engage and just let them process and say whatever they want to say, and we also process what they're saying.
Because sometimes it takes these kind of situations where there are a lot of triggers in the conversation. We need to keep it short.
Keep what short? The conversation or the
short.
trigger?
The conversation short.
Right, so it's like, hang on, I'm just gonna, like 2 minutes, timer on.
But, I mean, also because when there are more odds that the trigger is going to happen many times throughout the conversation because it's a trigger point already.
Okay.
Right? So be sort of like prepared to sort of lay there and just kind of that's enough for you, because for some people it
Don't
takes
engage.
time to digest the thing, right?
Who-
It's not that they didn't hear it. Most of the time people hear it, and especially if you lay in not so many words, right, they remember that, because if you had this 2-hour long conversation, most of the time you just remember one point.
That's true. So don't take too long. Like, don't drag it out, I guess.
Yeah. And the temptation is to drag it out. Like, you want to explain and you want to say the same thing. I want to reiterate the same thing again.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, like, it's so important, you know, that I need to say it twice. Or maybe 3 times. And maybe I'll just say it again in a different way in the 4th time, right?
Yeah. Like, if they don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, but if someone doesn't get something, I'm just writing them all down. I'm
Yeah.
going to make a video on
Because
this.
I find that, like, sometimes we have these conversations that I get, let's say, like triggered or something, right? And I say something, right? And then Xandria says something, and then I'm tempted. I'm just like automatically say basically the same thing in some other phrase, you know, like
Okay,
different phrasing.
this is
of the same
human.
thing.
Okay, this goes by the logic of communication,
Yeah.
though. If you really think about it, right, our instincts, right,
Yeah.
is that, okay, so now I'm communicating my needs, right? Which basically means I want to share, but I also want you to understand. And this is the danger.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we say,
that's the
go
thing.
in with the objective to share. No need to go in with the objective of needing them to understand.
Yes,
and
exactly.
that's why, right?
Yeah.
Because when I'm communicating my need to you, and I have a need for you to understand,
Mm-hmm.
now, when you give me a response that shows me that you don't really understand, because it's not like you agree with me, but maybe you say something completely different, and I would feel the temptation and the desire to engage even more, which is to, okay, he doesn't get it, so let me try to explain it in another way. Okay, the flowers doesn't work, the example don't work, let me use trees example, you know? And then you start to use different examples of trying to explain one thing, right? Because you
Yeah.
need the person to understand.
Yeah, and if you do want to engage and sort of describe it, it's okay, but you just have to make sure that you're focused on your goals, right? Now, like, let's say you say that I told Xandria, I said, you know, I don't like chickens, right?
He
And then-
loves chicken.
Then, I mean,
He
like, chickens
loves-
as an animal, right?
You don't like chicken itself?
I mean, I do, but
As an example.
yeah, as an example. And then Xandria would say, okay, I understand now, no more feathers for you, you know, I make sure that I don't wear any pictures of birds and stuff like that, you know, okay, I get it. I'm like, no, it's fine, the pictures and all fine, I just
That's not what I mean.
don't
right?
like
That's not what I
like
mean.
real life chickens, you know, or whatever it is, right? Just for example.
Uh-huh.
So then
And then maybe I start talking about like, oh, but why not?
I know because you know you used to watch that film and the chicken really like traumatized you or whatever it is, and all this kind of thing,
And
right?
he goes, but that's not the point.
Yeah, so you know you have to be very patient and very clear about sort of saying that, okay, I just want to let him know
About
in
this
this
chicken.
case is that I avoid chickens, for example.
Okay, so if I don't really get it, okay, at the moment, it's okay to let it pass. You've already shared your needs,
Yeah.
right? You've communicated your needs, and maybe the next time, you can bring it up again. Is that what you would suggest, right? As opposed to like
Yeah.
engaging too deeply.
Especially if I start feeling a bit agitated,
Triggered,
like you know that kind of
Be
what's
aware.
this?
Okay, I think we have
Yeah.
fantastic comments
Yeah.
and questions from like way up. So we want to first of all say hi to everybody.
Happy
Say
Wesak
hi.
to
Happy
all
Wesak Day! Oh my God, that's right. So I already don't eat meats, but today I stayed away from any live
Any
thing,
creature.
like any creatures, like no seafood. Okay, so Leah here has a question.
As we grow, we are often taught not to express emotions. Need and emotion are interconnected, so how is that healthy?
Sometimes I think that we are just not taught. It's not so much that we are taught to not express emotions, it's that we are not taught to express emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
hmm And it's not something that comes naturally to us, you know, or at least expressing our emotions effectively. Because yelling and screaming is also expressing our emotions, right? But it's not very effective. Now,
Yeah.
is it useful or productive?
Yeah.
So So we would to do all these, manage our emotions effectively, to communicate them and to understand them requires practice.
Yeah.
Really does, And I've seen the way I used to deal with my emotions then and now. There's so much practice that needed to be put into a sort of an improved way of dealing with emotions or communicating them.
Do you find that it's become more like your norm now to operate on this way as opposed to how you used to operate?
I think it's opened my eyes, right? And I can still see a lot of areas of improvement, but I can see that there are lessons to be had. Lessons to be practiced, right? And new things to be learned about it. And I think that already, and the past practices of past years or so, has helped me a lot to recognize that it's a skill as opposed to just do it.
That's interesting because like I realized that besides the major needs, of being supported and being appreciated and whatever
the emotional needs.
all the needs, right? There are also small little needs that happens daily or weekly in a relationship, and that is like, for example, when I'm feeling down or not in that of a great mood or whatever it is, I will have a need for Yuri to sayang me more, to pay me more attention, to hug me more, like today, for example, usually I'm the one who makes dinner or heat things up or whatever it is, and today I just had a lot to do and stuff, and so like I had like a need, I think, for him to take care of me when I'm not feeling so capable in taking care of myself during certain days. And this need can manifest in a way that like, if he's also not feeling that great, right? And then I can start to have like emotional
just
like
unhappy
the
situation.
Yes,
right?
I can sort of like, I can feel myself like sort of revert back to my old habit, and I used to do this a lot, and I think it's just like just be really sullen, or withdraw into myself, like have like a cloud follow me around, and it's interesting because I don't do this outside, like with other people. I don't do this. I think it only exists in this relationship, which means that it's a relationship need. It's a romantic relationship need that I have. And so what happens in these situations nowadays that I realize when I have this need and I can recognize it, and I recognize also my instinct to react, I would say negatively, even though it's not that negative, but it's just like a withdrawal of, I'm withdrawing to myself, and I'm like not as cheerful or not as loving towards him. I'm like waiting for him to make the move to make me feel better. What I do nowadays is that I take the opposite action. Like instead of going down that path, which is my natural reaction, I make an effort. Like if I want a hug, I go give him a hug, right? And I feel like this works really well, because when I do this, then Yuri is the kind of person who reciprocates and he mirrors me, and then it's because it's also his need. You see, I realized that he has a need for me to be the sunshine around him, to lift him up in energy. And I used to have a little resentment sometimes, like a mini resentment that I'm always the sunshine, and on the days that I'm not so bright, then I just wish that he would be my sunshine, right? But then I also recognize and understand that, oh, he also has this need. So, like the triggers, like if we're both being triggered in the same way, everybody need and nobody can give.
Yeah.
And so I realized this, and I realized that I need to do something and not go down my usual path of trying to get attention and affection by being sullen. If I want attention and affection, I have to be loving, and then I'll get in spades, in much more.
So it's about this a kind of generosity as well. Like I was thinking about sometimes we feel like we can just solve problems by telling people what we need, and that's it.
Yeah.
I need you to not be so condescending. I need you to be a more loyal husband. I need you to right? And that's kind of sometimes stops us from looking at ourselves inwards and to sort of saying that, how can I bring out more generosity in this? Because if I can develop myself it's actually a win-win for everyone, right? So, like, for example, we were talking a lot about partners, sort of like communication, right? What about parents, for example? Because sometimes our parents are who they are, right?
I mean, they're always who they are.
Yeah, exactly. They are who they are, but sometimes we wish them to be different,
Yeah.
right? And we say, you know what? If only I could have this kind of conversation with them, and they listen and say, yeah, I understand your needs, you know, and let's see what I can do. But some of them are sort of like stuck in the ways that they have thought all their lives, right? And they have always been your parent, right? So now you say, I want to switch it to, you know, this other kind of relationship, right? So it's also good to look at ourselves and our needs with the people that we want, because that helps us look at the work that we can do.
You know, sometimes with parents, right, we feel so hurt and so unsupported by what they're saying, and then we react, right? We say all sorts of things, but we never say, you know, Mom, what I need right now, I'm feeling really vulnerable, and what I need right now is to feel supported. And I know you support me, I know you love me, but what you just said makes me feel very alone. It makes me feel very unsupported. And I'm telling you this because I'm not capable right now to really take anything in, because I'm feeling really vulnerable, and I just don't feel supported when you say things like that. You know, we don't say things like that to our parents. You know, we just react, but they don't know why we're reacting to, you know? So
yeah,
it's an interesting question.
Anka here says, if you share your emotions but your goal is not making them understand but just to share the emotions, how will you work things out? How do you communicate effectively if you don't try to make them understand? I don't think we advocate sort of saying that just share your emotions and you don't have to make them understand. But it's good to communicate as much as possible, to try to make them understand, but also to try to understand. To go into a conversation sort of saying that one party doesn't understand is a little bit of a, how I say, unproductive way. Because, sorry.
Go ahead.
Because when you, the truth is, you both don't understand each other. There's some parts of you that you don't understand each other. That's why there's this thing. And it's not the idea that, oh, if he just understood, the whole problem would be solved. Because you don't understand why he doesn't understand. And if you can understand why he doesn't understand, that's part of the desire that can help make this a more productive interaction.
Yes. What Yuri just said is in chapter 3 of my book. To be understood, we have to first understand. And I'm just going to read you this really short summary of the perfect question here is like, how will you work things out and communicate effectively if your objective is just to share and not try to make them understand? Now, what I'm trying to say here is that if we want someone to understand us, if we want to be understood, the technique, the method is to go into it by seeking to understand that person. So just read a little excerpt. When people feel like they are being listened to and sense that we are not passing judgment on them, they are naturally more receptive and open to listening when we speak. This is why we don't have to be afraid of losing when we listen to people, because seeking to first understand before needing to be understood helps lower people's barriers and defenses against us, which makes it easier for them to listen to us. At the same time, when we understand someone better, we can strategize to convey our message in a way that we think they can best accept, instead of just telling the person the way we want to be understood. Conveying a message to someone in a way that they can accept and they can understand is a skill that can only be developed if we are willing to first seek to understand the person.
Yeah, that's very concise and very sort of precise way to put it. And I'm going to give you an example that popped in my head, right?
Yes.
Imagine you want to have a conversation with your husband, right? And imagine somehow you never knew, but whenever someone says the word emotion, right, or feeling, right, it doesn't register in your brain. Like the word just is like a blank. Either when you say feeling, it's just like he doesn't hear a sound, let's say, right? But you don't know because you think you're pretty similar people. You know, I never heard this condition before, but maybe he has that, right? Let's say, for example. And then what you think is that, you know what, he never hears me about my emotions. He just nods his head and just like does his thing and continues being the same kind of person. And if you just want to keep telling him, and without the curiosity of what's your experience of this, like why do you have difficulty with this, or why do you not understand this?
Yeah. Is it because like
your brain is different?
Is it because you have a different belief?
Yeah.
Is it because your family upbringing is different and then you see things differently? Is that why you find it difficult to give that to me? Like, I think by seeking to understand the why, sometimes you realize like the answer is completely...
Yeah, when you say certain words, I just don't hear them. I don't know why you just mouth them with no sound. I'm like, what? I don't get it. And then you start communicating and being curious about it, right? And maybe you realize that that's the situation. For example,
you know one of our friends like is a little bit deaf in one ear, and you know sometimes the person you're talking to and they don't really understand you because they can't hear you properly. Maybe they literally is deaf in one ear.
And sometimes like maybe you think like, this person talks so loud because they're so arrogant, right?
Yeah.
I mean maybe because they're just a bit deaf in one ear and they talk really loud.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the thing. Without the curiosity of why this person is different or why this person seems to trigger me, right? If you don't have that curiosity, you're going to have very difficult time having this conversation with a person. Yeah.
So Hilary asks, why do people use power of control to get respect? Because fear is the easiest way to get people to do something. And when we're not skilled in how to get people to like us or get people to respect us, the easiest way to do that is to make people fear us or need something from us for that, right? And it's an illusion, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not that they do respect us, it's that they are afraid of us. So
so it's a low skill thing, right? To get people to give you what you want.
I'm sorry if we're missing, I mean, we are missing so many great questions before, but because so many great questions are popping up right now, if we've missed your question earlier and you want us to look at your question and talk about it, maybe you can rewrite it right now because we're looking at the latest questions.
Daphne says, how do you communicate with a partner who decides to give you the silent treatment and not respond to any messages you send or even picks up your call? How do you open this person up? How?
Turn up in the ding dong. Well, I think that anybody who gives you the silent treatment, because I have been the silent treatment giver many occasions, and I know
the giver of silence.
The giver of silence and the cold shoulder. I'm very good at that actually. And so I'm warm now. No. And so I know that as an expert silent treatment giver, I cannot hold on to this treatment forever. So at some point I'll thaw out, you know, at some point I'll become warm again. And so when at the situations when I am feeling better and I'm warm again and I'm thawed out, that's actually the best time to talk about these things with me, you know.
And I'm going to highlight something about this, right?
Yes.
My kind of fear is that I don't like confrontations, right? So then when she thaws, that cold shoulder becomes warmer again, right? And everything's sort of like, smiling, hugging, and everything's...
He's afraid to bring it up.
I won't bring it up.
Yes.
And that's part of my responsibility in this situation as well.
To bring it up.
To bring it up. Like the difficult things that I have to get through to... That's the work, as people say, you know, relationships are work or whatever. That's the point.
Like Daphne is saying, he doesn't like surprise visits. Maybe he doesn't even like you bringing things up. You know, you don't want to rock the boat. You know, now that he's in a good mood, you don't want to bring things up that might rock the boat and blah blah blah. And so, but it is your part of your responsibility to bring something up if it bothers you.
And you have to develop some kind of inner strength, right? To be able to say, come on, I'm going to the gym now, right? For my emotional well-being, right? And even though it's really scary and he is getting upset, you know, and I'm feeling very scared, I'm going to bring my best to this situation. Like, I'm going to try my best.
Does Yuri avoid you during that period? Well, when it used to happen, now I haven't done this in like 5 years, I think. I don't know. It's been a long
Maybe
time.
longer, yeah.
Even longer. But when I used to get upset and give him the silent treatment, he would also give me back the silent treatment.
I mean, like, there's nothing much you can do in those situations already, right? And also, we were both significantly...
I mean, there are many things we can do, but we were not
At that point,
equipped,
we were both
not skilled.
significantly unskilled.
Yes.
So we were just sort of like bungling our way through our emotions.
It's like if I react, he will react, and we'll react towards each other. And that's why we're talking about this.
And all of us have our own pain points. So for me, it's like I just need her to make me feel loved again, for example.
Yes.
So all I'm just doing is maybe like my only skill that I can do, or my only ability is to say,
avoid.
I'm sorry, or I avoid, or something like that, you know, or wait. There's very little ability because I only know this or that, and that's it.
And I remember that even when he apologized, it's very hard for me to believe it because he apologized with such resentment as well. You know, to me that has zero value. So I think that we were both very unskilled in letting go of anger. We were very unskilled in acceptance. And so now, like if either one of us were to experience somebody who gives us a silent treatment, I think what we would practice is, number one, not react towards that. You know, if they choose to have a bad day, if they choose to be in a bad mood, I'm going to continue doing my own thing. I'm not going to, react. I'm not going to take it personally.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pander and coddle the person, but I'm just going to be normal. If I'm a nice person and kind person, I'll continue being nice and kind. But I wouldn't go out of my way to like, like, you okay? You know what I mean?
Because it's kind of like two sides to a coin, you know? Like when this person who really needs something, right? And goes and say, oh, you know what? When it's not there, you can get angry or upset or sad or unhappy as well.
Yeah.
And that goes to show that it's a two-sided coin.
Yeah.
Right?
And after the person has thought out and no longer is giving the silent treatment, I'll find like a right time and to bring it up with the person and say that, this pattern of behavior is really something that doesn't help our relationship, and this is why, right? And I'll explain and I'll share with the person what I feel about this, and I'll explain to the person the consequences and why it's not acceptable, or why I don't want this to be the norm in our relationship.
Yeah. We fall into a lot of same patterns with our partners because of the way we communicate.
Yes.
And the kind of emotional energy we bring into that conversation. So, when they do something, sometimes you always say, oh, why do you always do this when or why do you always bring this up? Or why do you always cause this problem when
Yes.
And that is always like, maybe you say, you know what, I try to be patient, and the past 3 times I sort of like try to hold it in, but then now it's just way too much and I got to talk about this. And then the pattern just repeats itself. There is no sort of like movement forward.
One very key thing, even in respect to Jojo here saying, even asking nicely, for example, his time to hear me and still trigger his anger, what should I do? In the end, he blames you for the quarrel. How do I handle such a person and keep the relationship at work? First of all, I think like you got to ask yourself, why do you want to be with this person? Second of all, you got to ask yourself, do you think that it is a healthy relationship? Do you believe that this person loves you and cares for you? You have to identify whether this person is treating you in a way that you don't want in your life, or this person actually loves you and cares for you, but they're unskilled in being able to show you love. You have to identify which one it is, because if it's the fact that this person is just really careless and disregards all your feelings and all your needs, then you have to ask yourself, why do you want to be in a relationship? But if your answer is, oh, this person loves me and I know this person cares for me, but he just doesn't know how to handle disagreements, then you know that he's unskilled, right?
Yeah.
And so then you can use different methods of communicating to the person.
Yeah, and also the understanding of how pain and emotions work on a person, right?
Yes.
For example, if let's say something really triggers them and makes them angry, for example, and they behave a certain way.
Yes.
If you understand how anger works, right, then you can see a person who's in pain.
Yes.
As opposed to like this person is angry at me and is always upset, and that story makes it very difficult to see the person as a person that needs help or in pain, or somebody you can sort of like ease the pain off. And I think that's a much more productive way to look at things, as opposed to saying that they're angry at me. It's just generally, I found the times that I have been angry, or the people I know have been angry, I think I always try to see now that they're in pain. More than anything else, they're in pain, and the way they behave is because they're in pain. It's not some personal thing. It is their pain they're dealing with.
In chapter 4 of my book, right, I talk about anger, and it's important for us to understand anger and why anger is so satisfying for us human beings. It can be oddly comforting because it makes us feel stronger. But this sense of power and strength is all an illusion. Instead of giving us power, anger robs us of power. We only think we're in control, right?
Yeah.
When we have no skill, and we're trying to get some kind of control over the situation, or we're trying to get some control over the person. So, or like, I don't want you, I'm going to stand up for myself. I don't want you to treat me this way. Anger is the easiest kind of low-level tool to use because anger is the most immediate and direct way to show someone, you are not the boss of me. I am not afraid of you, right? And so anger is interesting because even though we don't like ourselves when we're angry, we feel like angry is necessary, and being angry is necessary, and that it feels empowering because we feel like we're standing up for ourselves and not letting people push us around. But again, anger is an illusion, right? It's because we're so vulnerable, we feel like we need to be angry, and we think we have control. But anger is the opposite of control. Right? Have you seen people who are angry? They act like they're insane. There's no control whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right?
And anger is kind of like, when you look at tools, right, it's like a hammer, you know?
Yeah.
And when you have the hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Yeah.
And you can't blame the person for having just a hammer. That's all they have. That's all they were given, right? And that's the only thing in their toolbox. So if you want to bring love and compassion to the people in our lives, is to see that this person has very few tools, right? And to understand that this is the way they deal with, to fix something they just hammer it, right? And it's nothing personal. That's all they know how to do.
What Yuri just said is about understanding and accepting. Okay, and it's tied to this comment, Elaine's comment, which I want to read out loud, which is why I want to say very, very clearly that it's also written very clearly in my book that giving understanding and giving acceptance to who someone is does not mean that you agree with their behavior, does not mean that you condone their behavior. For example, if you're talking to a 5-year-old and the 5-year-old kid is throwing a tantrum in Toys R Us, yelling and screaming on the floor, you know that the child is angry and upset because they have no other skill to express their desire and frustration of not having their toy, right? They desire the toy, they can't have the toy, so they have no other skill to express, so they're just being angry.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand that this child's anger comes from his own frustration, nothing to do with me, okay? It's not because I didn't give him the toy he's angry. It is his own frustration and not having the toy that's making him angry. I can understand that. Now, do I agree? No. I don't agree with this behavior, squealing and screaming in Toys R Us on the floor. However, I understand it. Now, I also accept the child for who this child is. Do I look at another child and go, I wish this child is more like that kid. You see that kid, he's not crying, right? No, this is what acceptance means. Acceptance means I look at you, you're an orange. I don't wish you're an apple, right? I accept. Doesn't mean I agree or condone.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean I can't help you out of your pain, right? And think about it, helping people out of their pain is very different from sort of fighting anger, calming anger. It's sort of saying that you're angry, so let's fix the anger, right? Let's manage the anger, right? Anger management. But it's more like you're in pain, and how can I help?
This is high level stuff though, because
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes we have to manage our own reaction
exactly,
first. But it is true, it is possible, because I think my mom can do it really well, and I think that both of us are also practicing pretty much
we're
along the same way.
trying. We're trying.
Yeah. Oh my God, so many great questions. So, in regards to what Elaine here is saying, although one party is more understanding and positive thinking, doesn't mean that we should always be accepting and keep quiet. We deserve attention too. Now, I want to change the story of this sentence, Elaine. Doesn't mean we should always accept. If you don't accept, means you're fighting against reality. Yuri, okay, is maybe very negative, okay? And that is the reality. I am not accepting the negativity. I am accepting him. I am accepting the reality of who he is. Okay, different, yeah? It's not that I'm accepting the negativity and say, oh, slap me again, you know? Like, that's not what acceptance is. Acceptance is just, oh, this is an apple. I can see it for what it is, right? Now, keeping quiet is a misconception that we all think comes with understanding and positive and being supportive and learning how to not react with anger. Just because you don't react with anger doesn't mean you have to keep quiet. You can speak without anger. You can share
many things
without
we can
anger.
do without anger, you know?
Yes, do not keep quiet. If you have an opinion, say it. You have a thought, share it. The skill is in seeing when you can share or when you should say something.
And what is useful to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also in a way that the person can accept it.
Most of the time when someone's angry, we want to beat them down with sort of like a realization that you're being a fool. Which, you know...
I mean, that's like the feeling lah. But because you love the person, you don't think that way.
Yeah.
Right?
But sometimes we want them to sort of realize they're being a bit foolish, you know?
We want them to admit they're wrong.
Yeah. And you know, it's not productive that way.
And Elaine here says also we deserve attention too. And the reason I'm paying so much attention to this comment is because I think it's very normal for us to feel this way. For anybody who is vulnerable, we human beings are very vulnerable. So obviously, we feel like we deserve attention too. And the reason I'm focusing on this is because what I found is more helpful is focusing on not what I deserve. I don't care what I deserve. I don't care whether something is fair. I don't care what I deserve. You know, I'm so positive. I deserve some positivity. I don't think that way because it doesn't help me at all. Now, what helps me is thinking, I need attention. I need it. It's my need. I'm taking responsibility for my need. Now, when I change this story of thinking, I deserve attention, you know, because then I'm thinking, why aren't you giving it to me?
If I don't get attention, then the world is wrong.
Or you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm right?
Yeah.
So I'm changing it to, well, I need attention. And I need to communicate this to my partner on my needs. So this whole topic is about communicating needs, right? Now, before I can communicate, like what we were saying before, step one is to understand yourself. So it's like, oh, why do I need attention? Is it because growing up, I felt very neglected from my parents? And that's why now I crave more attention. Is that why? Because once you understand, then only you can share why you need that need with your partner. So it's nothing to do with deserve.
Yeah. This is an interesting question.
Oh my god, so many good questions. Okay, I promise.
Ashwarya here says, hypothetically, if Yuri were a negative person, would you encourage to help him try to be more positive?
I think hypothetically, if Yuri were a negative person, I wouldn't have married him because I think even at that early age of 27, I already knew, I've dated enough men to know that dating somebody with a very wise, I wouldn't say positive, I would say wisdom, you know, a person who has the ability to look at life from a wiser perspective was very important to me. It was one of my core values. And so I kind of selected my lifelong partner, and, you know, knowing that that was my top value. So yeah. However, I get your question. So if let's say I don't really know and we get married and then now I find out he's a very negative person, what I would first do is I understand that I cannot change him. I cannot make him more positive. What I can do is try to influence him. And so by influencing means that I cannot get upset every time he's negative. I don't want to judge him for his negativity. Instead, I'm going to come from the perspective of trying to understand why he is the way he is. Because he's a smart person, he's a good and kind person, so why is he so negative? And I want to understand that. You know, is it his background? Is it because he's had some bullying in school? Is it because, you know, he feels he's underpaid at work? You know, is it because people have taken advantage of him before and he was the victim? I don't know. I need to understand why he comes from a negative perspective.
Yeah. And I think it helps also if to think about it in terms of not negative or positive. Because they're kind of like bad and good, you know, and we're putting people in boxes and saying that this person is not so acceptable because he's like this, and this other traits are more acceptable. Question is, if you're with the person, you want a person to find some joy in their lives, right? So the question is, how can I help you find more joy? Really, right? In the things like why is he not finding joy in this or that, in traffic or whatever it is, and I would like to help him.
Yeah. And you know, ultimately, if let's say I can't change a chocolate into an ice cream, and I decide that I'm okay with chocolate, I also love chocolate, then I'll stay in a relationship. But if I decide, oh my God, you know, I thought I was getting ice cream, but now all I'm having is chocolate, I think I'm going to say bye to the chocolate and go after ice cream instead, right? So it could be, you have to decide, like, what is it that you want? Abu Bakar here has another great question, which is, don't you think those negative people can influence you with the negativity if you accept them?
Well, you know, they could be influenced by your positivity if you accept them too. You know, and of course, being around people who are very, how I say, let's say who are in a lot of pain, right?
Negativity equals pain, I suppose.
Might influence you to sort of like affect your mood.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's true, but the question is, what do you want out of life? You can choose to avoid these people if you want. You can choose to be around these people if you want. All these are conscious choices we can make, right? But if we are around people that we feel are negative, whatever that means, then we can have a choice to influence them if we want to as well.
Yeah. And I think we have to, again, as I said a few times during this live chat, look at the definition of acceptance. What do you mean by if you accept them? Accepting somebody does not mean that you let them treat you badly or let them push you around. Accepting someone, especially if you call them negative, I think in a sense is just acknowledging that this is how this person is, right? There is no, like, there's
no rejection of this thing or like saying that you have to be different.
Like, okay, why is acceptance useful? Why? It's like, why do you want to be a kind person? Why? You know, it's just like, oh, because the world say it's good to be kind. No, right? Why? You have to know why.
Yeah.
So like, why do you want to practice acceptance?
Yeah.
You have to answer that question yourself. For me, I know why I want to practice acceptance, because if I don't practice acceptance, I'm going to be always triggered by the person because I keep expecting a dog to meow. You know, like obviously, like in my book, I write about like if you expect a dog to meow, you're going to be disappointed every time. That is the practice of acceptance. I think that I like the characteristics of a cat, but this person has the characteristics of a dog. Now, if I keep expecting and needing and wanting this person to develop characteristics like a cat, I'm the one who's foolish because I cannot accept them for who they are.
And you know, I find that people who are very strong in joy and compassion, right, have a very strong sense of accepting as well. An example is this black man who befriended people from the KKK. And it's almost like the absolute enemy of black people, right?
It's like rats and cats.
Right? I mean, not like anyone's a rat or a cat, but saying that like these are so obviously at odds. Actually, one group hates the other group, right? But maybe not so much one. So there's a lot of hate coming from. And for this group to say that I can accept this person, doesn't mean that I accept you wearing that hood and everything and going stringing up black people and hanging them. But I can hang out with you, and I can learn about you, and I can talk to you like a human being, right? Because I know what you
Drives
are is what you are,
Yeah.
right? You have grown up with the conditioning that you have and and you are this now. And to say that you are an abomination, it doesn't even open up an idea of even connecting with that person, right? I don't want to connect this person should be, if I could press a button and all these people disappeared, I would make them disappear. That guy doesn't think like that. He engaged with them, he got to know them, and when they got to know him, they could see his point of view as well. But that takes a lot of spiritual strength, right?
Non-judgment.
Yeah.
They could see his point of view because that guy came with non-judgment. He didn't judge them for being bad or wrong, even though they were behaving in ways that was completely against his
It's
own
not like
beliefs.
he would keep a gun in his shirt and say, at the right time I'm gonna shoot him, right?
Yeah.
To engage, even just go and talk to a person, you need to accept them.
I think it goes back to very, very simple, like our foundational beliefs, right? Like, do you believe that, some people should get run over by a car and some people should die?
They should just disappear off the face of this earth, right?
Because that way of thinking, I mean, it's not wrong. It's just going to cause you a lot of unhappiness and suffering in life because it seeps into every area of how you handle your relationships. So simply put, based on Yuri's example, right, it's this: acceptance of your partner, of your in-laws, of your parents. It's difficult when they have very different beliefs, very different, even positive, negative, even like different everything from you, right? Now, giving acceptance means you can sit at the dining table and you can talk and you can listen without feeling like
this
triggered.
Like this person should be different. Like I cannot accept them, I cannot sit with them, I cannot. They're like an abomination almost, right?
Yes. So you're sitting at a table and you know very well that you are both very different. And you can choose whether you want to sit at a table or not. Even if it's a romantic relationship, you can choose whether you want to be in the relationship or not. Even if it's your parents, you can choose whether you want to develop a relationship with them or not. You choose whether you want to sit at the table with them.
And all the choices you make, whether you want to be with them or not,
don't
make them out of anger. That's one thing I would say, because it's so much pain in there. Right? That if you feel like, I'm gonna kick you out of my life, almost literally, right? And I feel so good about it. That is not the kind of sort of like saying that if you don't want to be with them, that's not the kind of way we're advocating.
Yeah.
We're advocating saying that I understand that this and this doesn't work. This dynamic doesn't work for our happiness, right? And I think it's more practical for that dynamic that if we were removed from each other.
Aishwarya here asks, so taking forward your hypothesis, if Yuri is a negative person, would you encourage trying to help him be more positive? Or would that mean that you don't accept him and you're trying to change the person? I would say if Yuri is a negative person, what I would do is I would try to seek to understand him so that I don't have judgments or resentment towards him. And then when I don't have judgment and resentment towards him, he won't feel the need to be defensive towards me, and he'll be more willing to listen to my thoughts on positivity and joy and perspective of life. And I feel like one core method and strategy on trying to change someone is to accept the person, because when you accept the person, you don't carry judgment into the conversation, and when there is no judgment, they don't need to put up wall to defend. And usually when you're trying to change the person for their own good, they can feel the judgment and they put up a wall, so they're not listening. There's no change. Now, if I want to influence him to be a more positive person, which I will want to, I need to begin by accepting him, by seeking to understand him, by listening, and then he feels safe. He feels safe in my love. He feels not judged. And then when I say something and I present a positive viewpoint or outlook on life and I talk about it, he will listen. I don't need to tell him that this is how he should be. He will voluntarily listen. This is basic human behavioral economics. When a person doesn't feel judged, they are not defensive, and they themselves will want to listen to you. That's how I would create change with somebody who is more negative. And all this can only happen if I don't need to change them, because then I don't have expectations. Because people can feel expectations and then they will become defensive. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's a really long answer, but
Yeah, I think it
that's
makes
the
a
method.
lot of sense. Yeah. I think we're almost an hour in already.
Yeah, we're past an hour, but like your comments are so good. I think that this topic is interesting,
Yeah.
and basically it's just about relationships. Like we're all over like relationships.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it focuses more on communication.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we can revisit topics like this again. I think it's great. We really love all your input and stories and sharing on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So great. I see a few comments about in-laws and everything.
We will definitely get to in-laws one of these days.
I mean, we have talked about in-laws before, but I think
Yeah. I think it's a good topic to revisit as well.
I mean, we've been doing this live chat since 2016, I think, and that's 4 years already.
Yeah.
So even in the 4 years, us talking about communication in 2016 and talking about communication in 2020, we have grown.
Yeah.
And
there's an evolution to our experience as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. We just sharing our own experience and our own learning in the hope that that's valuable to you as well. And yeah, and we learn sometimes from what you have to share as well.
yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that, oh great, I'm glad it makes a lot of sense. And you know what I think would really help, Aishwarya, is for you to read my book. Everything that I explain here, it is explained in so much detail with so many examples in the book, and it's really based off
Yeah.
of how we created change and how we embrace and practice acceptance in our
And
lives.
reading the book, you can take the time to sort of digest at your own pace.
Yes.
So that's the good part as well.
Yeah. So have a fantastic Thursday.
Thank you so much.
And
for joining.
happy Wesak Day again.
Yes.
For those of you celebrating. Namaste. And we will see you again soon. Be happy always.
Bye.
Bye.